So today I would like to focus on the topic of recovering and getting I call it bouncing, kind of bouncing from the low energy, bouncing from some kind of maybe stages, maybe not severe one, but stages of depression, because low energy and all those symptoms usually associated with the depressive states. And in our last talk, I remember like 1 week ago, you somehow mentioned that you went through some hard times, and I was surprised to hear that you are full of energy and you have a project to run, and you are making few steps kind of in that, out of that low energy kind of area where you were. So I would like you to share and your thoughts about that, how to overcome those troubles, and what would be your strategy you would recommend people to try.
Right. Well, as you say that, one of the things that comes to mind is one of the first things I ever read in an NLP book, a Bandler and Grinder one. And they talk about it's impossible to be in any state for a prolonged period of time. Like at some point, if you're going down, at some point you turn. And it may be just some small thing that you do that you realize that you like, or you enjoyed it, or it made you feel a bit okay, or you just noticed it. It could have been something that was there all the time and you just noticed it and you thought, oh, that's quite nice. And I think one of the things that's useful is to use whatever training and experience, life experience you have, to latch onto those small things and to build on them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it can be anything, but the secret is to kind of start small. Like I say, it can even be, and actually as I say it, you know yourself, like the Zen masters, just have a cup of tea and do it well. So there doesn't have to be any great exertion. You don't have to go out and change the world. You don't have to change anything. Sit with something in front of you, some experience or some mental process or thought that you like, and build onto it.
Well, that's nice. That sounds like you are, because when you said that you cannot stay in the same state for long, and I immediately thinking, well, you could go to the spiral down. So as a result, the state might change, not for better, but for worse, and that sometimes happens, when you are focusing on the wrong side of things. But as a recipe of finding something good, or something, somewhere you have a relief, or some thought or action which you enjoy or feel like it's better than anything else, and stick with it, and start slowly training your brain or your attention, directing to those kind of moments and areas, right?
Exactly. And that's where all this stuff that we hear and read about, making pathways and neural connections and kind of building up, little patterns in your brain so that they become defaults. Just start small, really small thing.
Would it imply also that the part of your strategy is supposed to be also filtering? I mean, right now people are going through lots of stuff, and as soon as they open, I don't know, whatever, Facebook, I personally kind of don't do that, but I know that they are bombarded with so many I know, different things and news and all other stuff, which is easily could, could grab your attention not in the right direction.
Mm.
So does it mean that you need to be like really aware what, like how to, the shield yourself from, from all that stuff which is coming?
Um, maybe not shield yourself from it, but I think you have to exercise good judgment and discernment, because one of the things, and we might come on to it, but I actually talked with somebody and I had it written on a card, because like most people, I have this stuff where when you open your tablet, it kind of gives you like news and suggested
Yeah,
things to read.
yeah,
And of course, the whole point of those things is they're designed to be addictive. And so to have the intention that you'll just look at them for a few minutes is really hard. And
yeah,
because like you see something else, you're thinking, well, I'll come back to that. And I mean, I know myself, and I'm not a big fan of it, but you can spend 3/4 of an hour easily just looking at stuff. And it's probably not the best use of time. I mean, if you have time where you really, really, really are choosing to do nothing and you want to be mindless and look at this stuff, that's fine. But otherwise, it's kind of eating your time. And I think perhaps implicit in what you're saying is it's kind of a bit negative as well. And if nothing else, you kind of feel a little bit disappointed in yourself that you just spent 3/4 of an hour for looking at, what Donald Trump said, and like, let's face it, the man says the same thing every day. He's been saying the same thing for 3 years. He's not saying anything new.
well,
you
with
know
Donald Trump, I have almost like a body reaction. As soon as I have in my email that Donald Trump tweeted something, I just delete immediately without. It's like I almost a reflex. I mean, but yeah, maybe some people just kind of curious or whatever. I see what you mean. Yeah.
and I think, and this is the thing where it really is a fine judgment that most of us perhaps are not as skillful as we would like to think we are, of having an interest in things and just getting dragged along for that extra 10 minutes or 20 minutes where it's really just a waste of time.
Yeah, yeah. So focusing on something which you really enjoy and start practicing diverting your attention to those things. So as a result, I would guess that our energy is supposed to build up, and we supposed to feel better and able actually to do things and be more energetic. So what would be the next step in that process? I mean, what is the strategy? Like, what is the sequence after that initial stage? What will follow?
Well, I think, and I kind of sound more of a hippie than I really am when I hear myself say this, but one of the things, and I've been reading stuff around this, is those whole ideas and skills about being compassionate and accepting. So you just have to do like some small things and really appreciate those things, not have this dialogue going on that you should be doing more, or you could have done more, or you need to do more, and all that kind of stuff. And be really, like they say, be grateful and appreciative that you've done that.
Mm.
And I think the thing that when we talked previously, was that whole notion about, well, if you had a friend who was in trouble or had troubles, how would you want them to be treated? And of course, you wouldn't be giving them any of that negative internal dialogue about, well, you should do more and you could do more and you need to do that. you've got so much time, you'd say, well, yeah, it's really good that you did that. And then make this kind of fine critical judgment. What is the next thing that you would like to do?
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, in terms of, and one of the ideas that occurs to me is, I remember reading this book. As you know, I read a book now and again.
Yes.
Years and years ago, and I think I talked to you at the time years and years ago. And the guy talks about certain things and ideas flirt with you. You know, they're kind of saying
flirting idea. I do remember.
Yeah, and that idea in itself is a nice idea. You know that what. So the question becomes, what are the things that are flirting with you? And one of the ways, and I remember this from another book, I think it's probably that Andrew Neil guy, says, if you're not sure about what you would really like to do, sit in your chair and don't move until there's something you really want to do.
Wow.
Like I say, it can be a small thing. You can think, well, I'll just go and do that for 10 minutes. You know, I'll clean that space, tidy that up. And I think sometimes actually we have this rather negative view sometimes about these diversionary procrastination activities, where people say, I have to do an essay, but I clean the whole house first. And it's like, it's not ideal, but actually maybe there's nothing wrong with cleaning the whole house.
I agree. I mean, somehow that idea didn't cross my mind, but yeah, that's actually a great idea.
Rather than being negative about it, just thinking, God, that's really cool. That's that clean. I could do the bills next or whatever. And just, gradually get into that thing about doing small, discrete pieces of work or, and the other thing that I'm really kind of quite keen on, and again, I think there are ideas that flirt with you, and what we all have to do is find the ideas that flirt with you and have a resonance, like the things that are in the back of your mind and come to the fore quite often, and you kind of maybe dismiss them, but really you should be paying more attention to them and giving them more of a prominent place. Because one of the things that I regularly come back to is the idea that, if you change the structure and change the environment a small bit, you can change a lot. So the example that comes to mind, and I really like this, I can't remember the guy that wrote it, but it'll come to me. But the idea that if you want to do something, that what you need to do is make it easy to do. So he prescribes, literally, I think he's talking about learning the guitar. If you put the guitar in the middle of the room so that you're constantly walking past it, it will become easier to pick it up.
Makes sense.
And
simple.
I think
sounds very simple, but it's true.
Something as simple as having it in a cupboard or somewhere that you have to go and get it out, it's easy to think, oh, well, I'll do that later, or I'll do it in a while. But if it's literally, you have to trip over it every time you go into the room, at some point, the frustration, it becomes easier to deal with it. And I think that's a great kind of technique for kind of doing things, put them in front of you. I think you use the expression sometimes, I don't know, is it called like chaining? Like, so if you what's the word, if you want to do something as simple as drink more water, then put glasses of water around so that you're walking past them. There's no great cost in it.
Yeah, totally makes sense. I do remember someone in some book, I read the phrase, like, the one who controls the circumstances controls everything. And
Yeah,
yeah, in terms of, yeah, somehow some particular circumstances can easily be changed in favor to certain particular behaviors, as you said. If you aiming to do more exercises, yeah, you could make it in such a way that I don't know, yoga mats already ready, lying right here in front of you. So it's going to be really amazing, reminder you that you actually wanted to do that. It's like you need to step over it every single time when you walk.
yeah.
Yeah, makes
And
sense.
I think those things like simple things like maybe doing a bit more exercise, you know, put some little weights perhaps, or unobtrusive weights, maybe like at the top of the stairs, so that every time you go up the stairs,
Nice.
you just, kind of
Yeah,
do that.
change circumstances a little bit in the favor of desired kind of action. That's good. That's nice. I also remember last time you mentioned that in the morning you are kind of setting your day also in the right way. So to do some those small, tiny, small rituals which somehow help you to to steer kind of from the beginning in the right direction.
Yeah.
Can you say a few words about that?
Yeah, well, I think lots of stuff that you come across and lots of people advise having some time in the morning where you kind of you set yourself up for the day, you know, and for us maybe part of that would be like setting your mental frame, like your mental outlook. And and it has that added bonus that by doing those few things early in the day, that you've set that kind of pattern that the day started positive already.
Yeah.
And so the couple of things that I'd kind of play around with is, I think I mentioned I got into that Wim Hof guy and his breathing pattern. So I kind of quite regularly, first thing in the morning before getting up, is spend maybe about 10 minutes doing his breathing.
What
You know,
kind of breathing is that? Is there
well,
any kind of duration in and out, or what
I
specifics
think
about
it's
that?
very simply he kind of breathes in and out about 30 times. So he kind of says, he says, pulls it in and kind of lets it out. And then on about the 30th time, as he breathes out fully, he then holds that for as long as he can.
Oh, I see.
So you kind of
Holding, accumulating
hold
that
it for as long as you can.
CO2. Okay.
And then at the end of that, you pull it in and take a deep breath, fill your chest up, push the oxygen everywhere in
Yeah.
your whole body, and then hold that for as long as you can.
Hmm. Kind
And
of
he says,
capacity, kind of playing with capacity with the, yeah. Okay.
yeah, he says it kind of it oxygenates your blood, and it kind of alkalizes it, and you'll feel a little bit tingly, and it kind of wakens you up, and clearly, you whatever way you've been lying, you probably haven't been breathing your optimal during the night. So it's kind of a good way of getting refreshed. And then when I kind of do that, I remember I can do the Chinese toe yoga, where you kind of move your toes and then you tense your ankles and do your ankles. And then when I do that, that then reminds me to do that kind of body scan, self-remembering.
Yeah.
So it kind of the
Autogenic
whole
kind of type of
pilot
check.
chain of little things, that you can kind of do. And then maybe thinking, what would you like to do for the first half an hour or whatever? Maybe have a cup of tea or something that you like. I think I mentioned to you, I have a penchant for the kind of the ginger and lemon and maybe a spoon of honey in it, warmed up. And I think that's a nice kind of treat. And it kind of reminds me that I'm here now and I'm doing this, and whether I kind of maybe write for 20 minutes or, read for 20 minutes. And one of the things that I kind of, in terms of the things that are flirting with me, I had read this thing a long time ago by some guy, and he has this little meditation where he says, you know, just think of a positive word, you know, and kind of close your eyes and just visualize the word. And you don't have to do anything, but just keep looking, visualizing, and being aware of the word. And I think he says do that for about 3 or 5 minutes. And I think that's a kind of an interesting thing to do in terms of, you know, because all of this is like programming yourself and programming yourself for how you want to be. And I think it's a kind of an interesting thing to do. The guy's name is Kinslow, Frank Kinslow, and I think he has this he has a lot of stuff and it's complete rubbish. But the breathing meditation is brilliant. You know,
Okay.
and so the idea of holding this positive word, and I think ideally perhaps maybe later on in the day you might still hold on to that word, you know.
Nice. I like it. I really like it. Never tried it. It would be interesting to try. I mean, I never considered myself like a visual person, more like kinesthetic kind of body type of body like. But yeah, visualizing the word, yeah, that would be interesting. Have you done it yourself? What kind of effect you had out of it?
So you're breaking up a little bit.
Oh, sorry. No, I
So
was just curious. Have you done it, that visualizing the word
yeah, I have done it,
exercise?
and of course it's like anything. Once you kind of play around with it, then you notice, you know, that it has to have a certain size, and it can you can notice the color, you know, you can notice the kind of shape, the dimension of it, you know,
Interesting.
and you can even notice it kind of disappears maybe, and you just have to bring it back. But I think the idea is that by focusing and concentrating on the word, that somehow you positively vibrate with it. You know, you have that kind of resonance, like the word then kind of permeates with you.
Nice. Okay, good. So there are lots of interesting things you mentioned, and I'm sure the people who watch our talk could pick up something which will, you know, which will work for them. And what do you think where like all those things are, you know, I hope they're kind of accumulating and helping so you people could get better and better, you know, all those small things. So what would be the next stage? What would you expect, you know, to happen after, you know, those small things are helping you to build your energy and get, you know, like a bounce from low energy states? What
Yeah.
comes next?
Well, I think then you're into the business of what are the projects or activities that you would like to do that are bigger, you know, because in a sense what you've just described, actually what we're talking about is like priming yourself, your pump priming yourself to have that kind of bit of energy where you kind of you want to do something, and you're kind of curious, and you're positive, you've got all those kind of things going. And so then it's like, well, what would you like to do? And I think we all know the kind of things that we would like to do, but I think if you approach it in this way, along this kind of path, you then take those skills with you about being compassionate and being accepting. So you don't have to think, oh, I have to do this huge project. You're just thinking, well, what would be a couple of things that I could do? You know, maybe spending 15 or 20 minutes, less than that if you want, in just making some progress. You know, that old adage, you just take bites out of it, you know, gradually.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the kind of the way of moving, you know, being a bit more of making the choice and finding the right size pieces for you,
Yeah, I'm trying to sense the whole picture which you just described. I mean, it's really interesting. It's kind of a little bit out of like a common understanding how people supposed to approach stuff. I mean, I was programmed probably all my life. Like, okay, you have this project. You just jump on it and go with it and push it as fast and as far as you can. And your way is almost like a pacing yourself. Make sure that you do enjoy. It seems to me that it's more like you are almost shifting your direction out of achievements and results, more into the process and liking the process, right? That's what I sense.
Yeah, and I think there's two aspects or two key things kind of that I noticed when you're saying that. On the one hand, some people are kind of in jobs where the demands are you need to keep running and doing all of those
Yeah,
things, and
deadlines kind of thing. Yeah.
and to the extent that if that's where you are and that's what you need to do, then that's where you are and that's what you need to do. But what happens for most people is at some point the energy of youth that they were using to drive them on into those things just kind of goes into the ground, because either they've physically drained themselves and they're not recuperating, and what they were originally doing is no longer of intrinsic interest, and it becomes more of a chore, and they then become depressed, and it's like, well, how do you get out of that? And the choices are, or there are probably more choices, but the two that present themselves immediately are, can you get yourself back to doing the same, living life in the same way? And you may well be able to do that, but the chances are you're going to run into a wall again. And or you kind of seek to find a different way of doing it, like,
Yeah.
what makes it interesting for you.
Reconnect with your values, kind of with something which
Yeah.
really you're interested in. Maybe you already long forgotten, and yeah, some kind of reconnect and get your energy pool connection kind of back.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay.
and
Super.
and it's interesting because I was reading something um the other day, and the guy was talking about Maslow, somebody that I usually don't bother with. I'm not a particular fan, or maybe I just don't get it. But one of the things that he says is, of course, you don't really tend to have people who are fully realized or dealing with those kind of major things until they're in their 50s, you
Mm-hmm.
know, because when you're younger, you have certain tasks, life tasks that you're addressing, and you have a certain energy for those. But after doing them maybe for a decade or longer, and maybe realizing that they're not getting you what you wanted, you kind of then need to come at things in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we thank you very much, Jim. We discussed, I think I picked up personally lots of interesting bits and pieces all over the place. So tell me, please, almost like some kind of wrapping up or some kind of message which you would like
Well, I
or
think
some summary which you would like to say in the end.
very quickly, because I think one of the things that we talked about the last time, but we didn't mention,
Yeah.
is the idea that I had that actually maybe there are just a small number of things that you need to
Yeah.
focus on that will make your life better for you, and it kind of ties up with that idea of how you program yourself and what becomes your default modes. What are the mental patterns that you go back to, and oftentimes they're kind of rubbish. And one
Yeah.
of the things that I came up with for myself was, if there were a few things that I wanted to do, was actually just to write them on cards, so that these cards remind me that these are the things that I kind of want to focus on. And I've got a few kind of liner, because the thing with the cards that I find particularly good, and for me, they're more kind of vivid and more physical than reminders on the phone or whatever like that.
Are you carrying those cards around, or you are placing it in certain particular way?
I have them kind of sitting in certain places, you know, just to kind of remind me. But, you know, so like for a while, I actually had one at the side of the bed, you know, that kind of said, when I woke up, reminded me of Hof, you know, so it just said Hof breathing.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
You know,
Reminders,
and so, you know, and one of the thing that I found that quite interesting about this process is you don't really need that many. Like I think we said before, it's that kind of 7 plus or minus 2. You know, you can, in terms of, you know, like having 5 or 10, you know, you can actually have a lot of things to do that are small pieces.
Yeah, nice.
You know,
nice.
Like, I mean, one, you know, I'm trying to think, because I'll kind of put them to one side a little bit. But like one thing is just, and I think this is again is something that we keep reading about all the time. You know, be careful what you say. You know, make what's the word? Make considered choices about the words that you use. You know, and
especially when you talk with yourself. Yeah.
Especially when you talk with yourself.
Exactly, you know, because we are choosing words more or less when we talk with others. But yeah.
But and notice the kind of the quality of the words. In fact, just that's reminding me, because I think I had one card. There was a woman that I read, I think her name Sharon Salzberg. I think she's a meditator. And one of the expressions that she used that I really liked was, she said, listen to the quality of your mental noting. You know, so that when there's kind of conversation going on, not so much the kind of the content and the words, but just notice the quality of the speech.
Wow.
And nice. That's the bit that you can then kind of start to manipulate a bit. And I think in NLP they would talk about submodalities, you know, like making it quieter and softer. And
I like the trick of paying attention to the qualities of the chatter, and it's like it's removing pressure from actually even noticing the chatter in the first place. So you are already kind of aiming further. You need to pay attention to quality of that chatter. I like it really nice.
Yeah, and actually, and one of the ones, because this is a really big one for me, because this is comes into this category of things that are important, that I realize is important and profound, and somehow I keep ignoring it and I keep putting it to one side. And so I have a card which it's not as operational as I want it to be, but the question is, which part of you is in control at the moment? Like the jargon that people use is, which part is out? You know, so is it the part that's moaning? Is it the part that's energetic? Is it the part that's doing, you know? And so like a key skill, I think, is to know which part is out at the moment. And then the question that follows on from that is that the best part for the job you're doing?
Nice. And next next question would be, if not, how to switch, how to shift towards the right one.
And this kind of idea, I mean, I'm using that parts language, but you'll see other people, like to me, it's very similar to the thing about just notice the observer. You know, all that kind of Walensky stuff,
Yeah.
Just, to who does that thought occur? That's what those people say, isn't it? To who does that thought occur? So who would think that? What part of you saying that? And
well, I sense that we do have to schedule next talk related to parts, because right now you I think stepped into some kind of really interesting topic, which I sense we could really dig into a little bit more and spend maybe half an hour talking about all possible parts, because I'm sure people would be curious about what parts you're referring to. But
yeah,
now, as for now, I would like to thank you, Jim. It's awesome you joined me in that Let's Talk It Through series of talks. And I'm sure that people picked up some good stuff for them to try and see what works for them. Thanks a lot for today's conversation.
you're welcome. Good speaking to you, Alex.
Okay,
Goodbye.
bye-bye, Jim. Let me